Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is memory, past, and future. So we tend to believe that our memories are true, are the whole truth. And at best, they are partial. And so much of our lives are dictated by these memories. And so we're going to talk about the mutability of memory and also how we can change the past and change the future. So it should be fun conversation. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine it looks like we might not be streaming. Okay, so let me try again, just in case. Let's see if we can get this one more time. Let's see. I'm just gonna, if you're online and you're seeing this being broadcast over Facebook, please let me know. And I'm just going to check because it looks like we might be having some technical difficulties. Just going to hop into Facebook and see if I can see where we are here. See if we're online. It looks like we are. Okay, it's funny because I'm getting a message from Zoom saying that it can't stream to the streaming services, but it looks like we are live. It might mean, however, that I don't see your messages. So I'm just going to wing it here, folks. And if you can chime in, that would be awesome. Anyway, before we get started talking about memories, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together and vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, we are talking about memory, and this comes from a really interesting conversation with a client. Okay, Dido, what great. So thank you for chiming in. I really appreciate it. That way I know that we have open lines of communication. Good morning, good morning. So this was a really interesting conversation because this person had some memories from childhood that were really vivid and traumatic for a very sensitive child to have experienced even just harsh words from an impatient parent, for example. that instance or that occasion actually created a very strong memory for this sensitive child. And what we were talking, good morning, Rosalind, welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. So we're talking about memory, the past, and the future. And so what was really interesting was that these selective memories were experienced not as selective memories. They were experienced as that's what growing up was. That's who the parent was this person that expressed this impatience. And what's interesting is even looking into my own life, my own past, there are some very strong negative memories that I have, and those memories have taken prominence over other memories that were pleasant or happy. And in fact, I've noticed that it has, over my history, taken effort to access positive memories because there were so many, or because there were impactful, let's just say really impactful negative memories. And so those negative memories kind of clouded the field, making it difficult to access the positives, because what happens is you get thrown into this fight or flight kind of mentality, and you're sorting for danger. And so what we've had this person doing is practicing positive memories, creating positive memories. So, in fact, recreating the past. Because if we look at our experience, every time we remember something, we're recreating it in this present moment. All we have really, truly is this present moment. And when we are remembering something, we are reassembling it, we are creating it in this moment, and we are creating patterns and a physiology that goes along with that experience. So what is really quite extraordinary and wonderful about this ability that we have to recreate the past is that this person, in their practice, they were practicing having the experience of being loved and cared for by this parent. And in asking what the impact of that was, they said that they felt more grounded, that they felt okay, like they felt like they were okay. They felt a renewed sense or a new sense of being whole, like, and they said, like, I had a normal childhood. And this is such a fascinating capability that we have as humans to be creating our experience and creating the story of our lives. So the question, and there are so many questions, but one of the questions that is fascinating to me is what's real? What's real and what's not real? was this memory that was traumatic? Was that memory real? Was that the truth? Was that the reality? The way that it was remembered, the visceral sense of fear and terror and all the associated emotions of inadequacy and all the dynamics that go around that. Was that true? It's maybe that incident happened, but the way that it was interpreted by a very sensitive child and then propagated outward from there, is that more true than going back to that time and creating memories of this parent in their more positive expression? And the fact that this kind of practice was facilitating this person's sense of wholeness in this moment, creating a new future by recreating the past, by freeing them from the terror, by freeing them from the anxiety of contending with this disapproving parent. They are creating a new possibility for themselves going forward. And it's likely that it's a more balanced, maybe even more true, even though the memories that they're creating, or the pattern of this memory that they're creating, isn't founded in actual remembered experience. They're creating it as a new memory. And my sense is that in doing so, they're not only healing themselves, but also healing that parent. So the conversation had emerged from a discussion about this book that I started reading, Science and the Akashic Field, which is a theory of everything, but I haven't gotten into the meat of it to be able to articulate it yet, but that's coming. Anyway, in the book, there was a section where the author was talking about how we create the past in this moment. And I need to go and find that again so I can share it with you. But it's really interesting because we rewrite history all the time. I'm just so fascinated by this whole notion of memory, because we do know it is documented scientifically that people don't distinguish between what's something that's real or remembered and or experienced, and something that is vividly imagined. And I spoke with someone once who actually told me that there is a condition in which a person can't distinguish with stories that they've fabricated and what's actually happened. So they really truly can't distinguish between what's real and what they made up, which is apparently it's a real condition, but that's a very interesting thing. And I am, in thinking about it in this moment, considering that perhaps that's true of all of us to varying degrees. that, or most of us anyway, that we don't necessarily know what we've made up and what's real. And so this sort of sliding scale is evident in the example that we started talking about with this person who had vivid recollections of their childhood that were just tremendously painful. And now we're recreating that with new memories, practicing the new memories. I'm calling them memories. We could call them fabrications. You could call them whatever, but what's happening is that they're being patterned into this person's awareness. So it's recreating the experience of the past. And as it's recreating the experience of the past, it's shifting their being in the present, because that dynamic is being dissolved. And so there's a greater sense of freedom and wholeness and belonging and acceptability as a result. And consequently, going forward into the future, their lives will be changed, because at their foundation of being, they're feeling whole. It's this mind that we have, this way that we perceive the world, the malleability of it is just mind-blowing to me. And we tend to think in absolutes. We tend to have a righteousness about our certainty about things. And so much of our responses to life and circumstances are driven by our experiences of the past and the way that we've integrated and remembered those experiences. And I don't know about you, but I've had situations where something happens and I get triggered. And then as I trace where that trigger comes from, it comes from a memory or a situation that I didn't even consciously remember, that I didn't even know was operative in my being and shaping the way that I interact with the world. How wild is that? That we have these things, and often these experiences occur when we're children, and the perception of a child is very different from the perception of an adult. And so things can readily terrify a child that may not be, that aren't perceived in full context, right? So maybe a parent has a horrible day. Who knows what could have happened to them or in their lives in that day? And maybe they're abrupt or brusque or selfish or just not their best selves. And yet that experience registers so profoundly for a sensitive child. And it's not to say that those experiences aren't valid. I mean, oftentimes there are horrors that we experience as children. And what happens is that these situations can also be magnified for ourselves. And it's hard to know. We don't, I'm not advocating that we discount any of our experience. I am looking at how we can rethink, reconceptualize certain experiences in a way that empowers us to be more whole and resourceful in our own lives. It's all reframing, right? When we talk about reframing, we're talking about creating a new context, creating a new container or a new perspective, or even sometimes new scenarios that we can then integrate to become more whole. And truth in this kind of context, it's not about this, that, or the other thing that happened. What the truth that shifts things is how we integrate and interpret and metabolize those instances. So oftentimes as kids, we make decisions that shape the rest of our lives. We cultivate survival patterns and behaviors that are essential for our survival emotionally, if not actually physically and literally, as children. And then as we become adults, those behaviors are still operative and become detrimental, at the very least, become detrimental in our lives as adults, because our lives as adults are requiring very, very different skills of survival than those of a child. Anyway, I just find this whole consciousness, awareness, mind, memory, creation of our reality, I find it to be endlessly fascinating. And how malleable all of it is, how we can move from, and I've seen this in so many sessions with folks where they arrive really distraught and in deep despair or upset, and at the end of a session, they're fine. They're fine, and their experience of being has shifted. It's remarkable to me that we can have such facility, such flexibility of mind and being, that we can move from one extreme to another in the blink of an eye, essentially. And it just challenges the notion for me of what's real and what's not real. And that's been a question all my life, it's like, and trying to understand other people sometimes is like, you can recognize that clearly somebody is perceiving a situation from a very different point of view or very different perspective, from a very different experience of motivation. And sometimes it's just incomprehensible because it's so different from the foundational assumptions that we might hold. And the thing is that we can't imagine that somebody has such a different perspective on the world, right? How could we imagine it? Because we're so immersed in our own perspective and perception. I'm so fascinated. I'm so fascinated. And I think that cultivating a curiosity about these things can help us in maybe finding a greater flow of communication. So that's the hope. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel, my Facebook page, and I invite you please to like and follow the YouTube channel for Enlightened World Network, and for me, Mira Rubin. The links are in the description. Isabel, so wonderful to have you join us. Welcome. And until next time, so much appreciation for you and your curiosity and courage to explore all these different ideas about life and being and meaning. So until next time, so much love.